Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here today with my thoughts on Tenet, the movie that was supposed to come out in July of 2020, but it didn't because of COVID, and yet it came out in August instead. I didn't get to see it until early October. That's when the theaters in my area got the okay to open, but I was there. I did see it in IMAX, and I was so excited, even though I was excited to see it back when it was in July, but I was still just as excited, doubly excited even, because theaters had been closed for so long. And anyway, I know I'm at least a month late getting this review out there, but I still wanted to get my thoughts out, and so here we go. How was Tenet? I liked it. I may even really liked it, but it was really hard to tell on the first viewing, and let me get into that. The movie stars John David Washington, the son of Denzel Washington, by the way, along with Robert Pattinson, Elizabeth Debicki, and Kenneth Branagh, among a host of others. And there's no real good way to sum it up. I've seen some other reviewers just use the IMDb plot summary, and that's what I'm going to do. It says, armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. Hopefully that makes sense, or most of you can wrap your minds around it, but that's a pretty good way to sum it up. And it's hard to even delve into the plot here because it can be spoilery. It's just kind of something that you have to watch to see for yourself. And I will say, Nolan really shows his technical brilliance again in this movie. Just like we saw in Dunkirk a couple of years ago, the cinematography is great by Hoyt Van Hoytema. Hopefully I'm saying that. The guy he's been Nolan's director of photography for the last few projects. He again nails it out of the park. I thought the special effects were great. Of course, Nolan real honoring the real art of filmmaking, putting the actors in realistic situations, using those practical effects, special effects on set, not relying very much on CGI. That's all really cool. It's well choreographed. I thought the blocking of the scenes was really good, and I thought the sound, good sound design. However, sound mixing is another thing, especially when it comes to the actors talking. There is a problem there, and we'll get into that later. But the sounds, it seems like decent sound work, but we'll get to that. But that comes with an asterisk. And I thought the locations were good, and all the technical aspects were just sublime. It continues to be that way. The plot, however, is very convoluted, very hard to follow for even someone like me, or even a hardcore movie fan like you if you're watching this. And I thought that the story itself was lacking in any kind of emotional depth. The main character John David Washington plays is just the protagonist, and he's great. The performance is fine. He's likable. It's just there's no reason to like him, so it kind of is surface level. We know we like him because that's the guy who we're spending so much of our time with, but there's really no emotional pull for us to really root for him. There's nothing that we don't really understand why he's with the CIA or why he's on this mission. It's all cloaked and veiled, and it's all around this idea of time manipulation, which is where Tenet comes into it. And that's why this is a movie that deals with a very complex idea, and Nolan, you have to get out so much exposition to explain that to the audience, and even then he knows he can't spend too much time on it. Then it just becomes a classroom, and you can't really do that when you're trying to tell in theory, telling an entertaining story. Robert Pattinson, the other CIA officers, they are as well. They're likable because we grow to like them because we're spending time with them, but there's very little to really join in that emotional fight. I found it to be quite lacking. Very similar to what I saw in Dunkirk. We had all these soldiers and other characters that we were following around. Tom Hardy's character, the pilot, we were following them around in that movie, but we had no emotional stake in the game. We like them, sure, we're rooting for them because I think a lot of us just go in knowing, yeah, we want the Allies to win, but really there's no point in going on that journey with these soldiers. It was really bland. It lacked any kind of emotional tie-in throughout the journey of that movie. Now, and again, technically brilliant cinematography, sound, effects, all that stuff was great in Dunkirk, but the actual characters and story lacked, and I'm afraid Nolan has the same problem here. The only character is played by Elizabeth Debicki, the female lead. She has the only kind of emotional arc in the movie that we can really root for and see her go through, and she does great. And I really liked her a couple of years ago. I've watched her ever since The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I really liked her in that, and Widows. She was in Steve McQueen's Widows a couple of years ago, and she was good in this too. And again, she has probably the juiciest part, or the most emotional part in the entire movie. But the rest of the cast is where it just, and Kenneth Branagh's the bad guy, is pretty much the bad guy who's trying to use the Tenet to manipulate time to do something nefarious, I'll just say that, or something bad. I'm trying not to spoil for those of you that may have not seen it. I know a lot of people have already bought this on Blu-ray, DVD. It's actually at the top of the chart for pre-orders right now, so I know some of you may have just skipped, may have not been able to go to the theater or not made time for it, so it might not be out there, but I do recommend it for movie fans. I do see, though, how a general audience might not like it. So again, if you don't like really complex ideas being explained and that might be a little hard to follow, this might be a tough burn for you to get through. However, I do think that Tenet, for me even, that I found a very convoluted and a little hard to follow, I think it will get better. I'm hoping it'll get better with future viewings. I'm going to be buying it on 4K and checking it out again. And again, I think it will get better. Like Inception, it does at least keep you thinking or wondering what you can see again in future viewings. So that's something I do appreciate about Nolan and his story concepts, is it does make you want to go back and revisit them and try to see what you can see, if you can, or understand. I think this is it's again technical, well done, technically well made, well directed as far as the effects, the blocking, the editing, and the sound. Back to the sound real quick. There are audio problems. Again, a history with Christopher Nolan films. Some people say they even noticed it back in Dark Knight Rises, which I don't personally remember that. I'll have to revisit the film to see, but I do remember it watching Interstellar. Moments where very inaudible dialogue from the characters when they're in the middle of the frame talking, and you can't really understand what they were saying. You have that again here in Tenet. Not as bad as Interstellar, but it's still noticeable. And sometimes it's by design. Sometimes, again, the actors are standing center of frame and you cannot understand what they're saying. Christopher Nolan just had an interview where he said other directors have called him and said that, hey, we can't understand a thing that your people are saying. Your sound mix is terrible. And he just shrugs it off and says it was all part of the painting that we're trying to do, or all part of the art that we're trying to display to people. So it seems to be on purpose, which I personally do not understand. When you have main characters in the center of the frame of the camera that are obviously supposed to be talking to each other, and the audience can't understand what they're saying, there's no excuse for it, especially in 2020 when we have the best sound mixing equipment that's ever been known to man available to use, and they choose not to. And it's all part of this. I guess he prefers to be vague and leave people out of the loop. I don't know what that accomplishes. I know there's some scenes where you can get away with it, and you're not supposed to hear what they say. But then there are times when we need to hear what they're saying. It's a sound and visual and audio experience, and especially when you have these characters that you're trying to follow and relate to or join in their journey, and you can't even understand what they're saying. Come on, man. I don't get it. Overall, I would say Tenet, check it out. I would say at least give it a rent. And I'm more on the positive side. There are some people that really didn't like it. The cinema score, which is more of a general audience take, gave it a B, which is pretty low, I would say. A B- is seen as terrible. A B is okay, so it's a little more positive. I'm a little more positive than that. I'd probably go up to the B+, maybe even A- range, but probably B+ more realistically, just because of the plot being so convoluted, the audio problems, and just the overall, and the characters being hard to follow, hard to latch onto. There's really no emotional weight there. I'm hoping it gets better with future viewings, and I look forward to checking it out on 4K. So I do recommend it, but I do issue a caution that it is a very complex idea. However, Nolan does direct with a visual tenacity that, at least even if you take the audio out, visually, I found it still interesting to just watch, and I was still interested to see how the events played out. So anyway, everybody, that's my thoughts on Tenet. What did you think of the movie? If you've seen it, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video very soon.